Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Tonight we're going to do an unboxing, a fairly quick one for Fort Sumter, the Secession Crisis of 1860 to 1861. This is just released from GMT Games to P500 backers, and it'll be available for retail I think in about probably another few weeks or a month. Designed by Mark Herman, and it's a card-driven game. It's a really neat, fast-playing game where you can get a game in 20 to 30 minutes. First time you play it, probably about 30, as you learn the rules, which are not hard, but you know, it's going to take a little bit of reading and understanding everything, explaining it to your opponent. But then after that, it takes probably about 20 minutes. So it's an easy game to get to the table in between games, or lunchtime. You can get in 1 or 2, maybe even 3 games if you have a full lunch hour. But pretty neat game. I got to play it at SD Historicon this last November. Mark taught it to us, so I'm going to see how much of it I remember. I pretty much remember a lot of it, but not everything, so I'll give you a brief overview as well while we open it up. But let's open this bad boy up and see what's inside it. First thing you'll notice is the box size is a little different than normal. It's almost about a 3-inch box, but it's not exactly 3. I think it's like 2 3/4 inches, but it's also a little slimmer on the side. So pretty neat box size, but I really love these boxes. Nice and sturdy, as we've come to expect with GMT boxes. We have the rules of play, and as I said, it's not a difficult game, only 8 pages of rules. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple, pretty easy to get to the table. You have a playbook which will teach you the game, and give you some illustrated examples of play on page 2. And that goes to about page 14, and page 15 it starts with a very short history of the Secession Crisis of 1860 to 1861 that Mark wrote, and then there's examples of the strategy cards, or I should say explanations of the strategy cards, and then Mark has his designer notes and strategy tips for about 4 pages of those. So there's a brief look on the inside. This is what the examples of play look like as far as setting up, and then how you play your cards. These are the cards in the game. There's the board, which we'll get to here in a moment. Flip through these other examples of play, and then we have the final crisis piece explained, which is the end game, or towards the end game. We'll get to that in a moment. And we have the card explanations, a little bit of history to each card, and some good light reading. Interesting, as always. Anything from Mark is always going to be real interesting. We know that he's brought a ton of games to us, and this is another little bit different for him because it's quicker and easier. So let's open this up here. This is the mounted map, or mounted board I should say. Beautifully done. It's a little different than what I saw with the prototype in November, because when it was, I think the one I saw had, if I remember correctly, these were different shapes. Now they're all, each of the crisis dimensions are all matching shapes. So you've got these rectangles, you've got circles, pentagons, and some squares here. It makes it easier to visually see everything across the board. Not that there's a ton there to get you confused, but it makes it a little quicker at a glance to read everything on the board. Then you have cards and some wood, because everything in the game uses wood. Nice cubes and cylinders, and there's a whole bag of them. And interestingly enough, there's even a meeple, and this is the Peace Commissioner, which is something that comes into play based on how many cubes are pulled from the crisis track. This is the crisis track here, and you have the secessionist side here, you have the Union side here, and as you play cubes, or get cubes from your cards, let's get these cards opened up here, take a look at these. Get a couple of cards out. There's a couple of Union cards, and then we'll get a couple of Secession cards. So the Union cards, these are like any other CDG. You have your ops value or just the value of the card. This is how many cubes you can play, and then these are the events that you can play if this is your card. Like if you're the Union player and this is dealt to you, you can use it for either the value, the cube value, to get 2 cubes off your track and get them into play, or you can also do this event. You can add up to 3 tokens to Fort Sumter, or remove 2 opposing tokens from the Fort Sumter space. This one is add 3 tokens to the Secession starred space or the political spaces. So that is a couple of examples of the Union, and this is the Secession. Same thing, it's 1 and 2 value. Here you get to add 3 tokens to the armament spaces, which are these red spaces, or you can remove 1 opposing token, cube. Florida secedes, add 3 tokens to Secession spaces, or remove up to 2 opposing tokens from 1 Secession or public opinion space. And these are the public opinion spaces. The way that you can follow it is these icons here. This is the Secession space, as you see here with Texas, which is where I'm at. This star here is a Secession space, or the public opinion space with the little person icon. You have that there as well. So the symbology is really simple to follow and easy to read at a glance. And then the last part of the card is the bottom piece right here. And when we turn it over, you see this colored section with the Secession crisis dimension. And every round you get 4 cards. You're going to pocket 1 of them. You're going to play 3 of them. You hold on to 1 each round. It's a 3-round game. And in the 4th round you have the final crisis, which is where you lay these out, and then that's the final battle to move around cubes around the board where you can, depending on how you do in the final crisis, which is like basically a showdown draw. 1 card each is played, and then based on that you can either move cubes or well, you can move or add cubes around the board, and that way you can gain victory points. Let's go back to the crisis track here, because I had mentioned about the Peace Commissioner guy, and everybody gets cubes laid out on their crisis track, both players. As you pull them off using these cards, you pull 2, you get the 2 to put into play. As you get up the track, you kind of push things up. Tensions escalate. First you go to escalation, you get 2 extra cubes, 2 bonus cubes. The first player to get into the tension area gets 3 bonus cubes, and then the Peace Commissioner comes into play. The Peace Commissioner immediately goes out on the board. That player can put him anywhere they want, and when you place the Peace Commissioner in any spot, that basically stops any more cubes from going in or coming out of that location. So it's a way to balance out that run up to war as somebody is just grabbing all these cubes and trying to maintain control of the, or gain control I should say, of these different aspects of the game. It comes down to a little bit of like a balance between the more hawkish you are and wanting to go to war, the more you lose support the other way. So it's kind of a neat mechanism. It's really a fun game, and like I said, it's a constant tug of war, and not a hard game at all to pick up and play, but definitely good depth for replay and replayability. Speaking of replayability, there are 40 cards in the game and 24 are used in the game, so you're going to have 16 cards that you won't be using. So again, it goes back to replayability. I think that covers pretty much everything. As far as a brief overview, I didn't want to give a review of the game because I haven't played this yet. I've played it at San Diego, but I haven't played it since. And speaking of San Diego, shout out to Harold Buchanan and his fantastic convention, SD Historicon. If you get a chance and you have some time in November, I definitely recommend giving it a look and getting out there, because it's just a great convention. You get to meet up with a lot of great designers and see some games in various stages of development, and just sit down and play some games with the guys who make these games. And it's just a great few days and a great intimate war game convention. Strongly recommend it. But that is Fort Sumter, the Secession Crisis, 1860 to 61, from Mark Herman and GMT Games. And if you're interested, you can jump on it right now on GMT's site, and hope you guys enjoy it. See you next time.